are no limits.
It figures it would be something like this.
Our nation, our ideals, a vision.
Excuse me.
Just survive.
You know, you look like your head fell in the cheese dip back in 1957. You're okay. This one, real fucking ugly. You see, I take these glasses off, she looks like a regular person, doesn't she, huh? Put them back on, formaldehyde face. That's what we got.
That's enough out of you. You get out or I call the cops.
Call the cops? You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Hey, Adrenaline Heads, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jamie. And I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Awesome. All right, so as most of you listeners will know, that comes from the movie They Live from 1988. So that is what we're covering. So, Jamie, give us the synopsis.
Nada, Roddy Piper, a wanderer without meaning in his life, discovers a pair of sunglasses capable of showing the world the way it truly is. As he walks the streets of Los Angeles, Nada notices both the media and the government are comprised of subliminal messages meant to keep the population subdued, and that most of the social elite are skull-faced aliens bent on world domination. With this shocking discovery, Nada fights to free humanity from the mind-controlling aliens.
Now, I'm confused, and maybe you could clarify this. Ever since 1988, I had never known the fact that Roddy Piper's character is called Nada.
And I watched the movie. I watched it.
And I don't think they actually mention it.
They never name him in the movie.
Yeah.
I watched it twice because of this. And I was like, wait.
I watched it 3 times. I'm like, say
every
Nada.
Single moment where he is introduced with another character, we find out other characters' names, never once do they mention his name.
Exactly. And I guess we get Nada, and Nada is his name.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you.
I was like, over these years, and I've been watching this movie since I was in high school. So, all right, cool. So we'll move right along and go right into people we may know from the film They Live from 1988. So you want to start us off?
All right, and it's starring Roddy Piper, because you have to say Roddy, not just Roddy.
Yep.
He's a WWE Hall of Famer, Body Slam, 1986, Hell Comes to Frogtown, 1988, The Chair, 2016, which was his last movie before he passed away from cancer that same year.
And it's a sad loss, but a lot of people knew who Roddy was, especially within the WWE, because that was his mainstay. He has done a ton of other things. He was in Highlander, the TV series, a whole bunch of other TV shows that happened, made cameos. We've seen him all over the place. And if you don't know who Roddy Piper is, come on.
Right.
There's something wrong with you. You know, he's the guy with the kilt in wrestling. And it's a sad loss, but at least we have that to go back on. You know, we could go back to WWE wrestling. We could watch all these movies and see what he had done. And he was an amazing man. Well, next up would be Keith David, and we know him from The Thing as Childs. And that's something that Jerry and I had covered here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast as well. Hot Pursuit in 1987. Platoon in 1986, which is pretty cool. Roadhouse in 1989, and there is so much more, but obviously if you know the name Keith David, you could remember his voice in your ears.
Absolutely.
Every time he talks, because I remember his voice and his cadence, just how he talks, and it's like perfect, and you know him visually too, and I just love him for it.
Up next, we have Meg Foster. She was in Bonanza in 1971. Masters of the Universe, 1987, Leviathan, 1989. She played Hera in Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, 1998 to 1999. And in 31, the 2016 Rob Zombie movie, which was excellent.
Yes, I do agree too. I really enjoyed that movie as well. And next up would be Peter Jason, a John Carpenter regular, if you think about it, too. But we have seen him in other movies, as well as 48 Hours from 1982. Obviously, Eddie Murphy. Brewster's Millions in 1985 with Richard Pryor. Heartbreak Ridge in 1986. And, not to give a bit of a staple about Peter Jason, but Prince of Darkness in 1987. Village of the Damned in 1995, and Escape from L.A. in 1996. So, yeah, he's pretty much a John Carpenter regular, if you think about it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, and last up, we've got George Buckflower, the bum in the Back to the Future movies. Starman, 1984, The Village of the Damned as well. And he plays a lot of bums in films.
Yes, he does.
Typecasted.
He's very much typecasted in every film he's in, and he always plays that bum, but he's always loved. All right, well, with that, we're going to move right along into general thoughts of the film. So, Jamie, what do you have?
I love this movie. Years ago, I went to a gym that had a movie theater in it, and the one and only time that I did all of my cardio was when this movie was playing. It's one of my favorite B movies, and it always felt to me a little bit like a Twilight Zone episode. I think that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, I agree. I was in high school when this movie came out, and I wound up seeing it, I would say 1989. At that point, it was on cable, and I've loved this movie ever since I saw it, because I was still in high school, because it basically went out of the theaters, went straight to cable, right to HBO. So I was able to really take part into that, and it's a part of a series of low-budget films that John Carpenter actually had to do for a deal for a film company for a bigger budget film, which I'm still trying to figure out which one it was. I'm still thinking it's the In the Mouth of Madness, because that came out years later into the 90s, because he had to fulfill a contract of doing 3 films that were low budgeted, filmed within California, to do something mass marketed and very big. And I knew he was H.P. Lovecraft aficionado, or somebody who loved old H.P. Lovecraft material. And In the Mouth of Madness was pretty much that kind of script or story that people really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed that movie too. That it's another film. I don't know if you adrenalites out there realize I have a prime pick for, or like at least a top 10 of my favorite directors, writers, and producers. One of them being very much in the top 5, John Carpenter. So
Rightfully so.
Yeah, exactly. The others would be Wes Craven and Steven Spielberg and Lucas.
All good ones.
Yes. So, but I'm still, if you guys have any information regarding this, because I only read this about years ago, but have not seen anything since on the internets. So let me know, and just, post them in the comments below when this episode shows up and it's on Facebook. And then I'll give you credit later on when another episode comes up that we record. Well, on to favorite scenes in the movie. So what do you got, Jamie?
I love the opening scene with the priest giving his doomsday speech, which is telling you exactly what's going on. There is people controlling the government, and they want you to spend your money and worship the almighty dollar and consume, and it's going to bring our downfall. And he's 100% right, but we don't know that yet. And, you even see the cop car pull up, because as you find out later, all of the cops are in cahoots with these aliens. They're either the aliens, or they're being told that anybody who's going against them is, a communist or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love a good harbinger. Like, it's one of my favorite things in any horror movie is the
it's
harbinger.
Like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the harbinger.
You stated that originally when you were on, watched it in the 80s when you did Friday the 13th with Damien.
Because you watch it the first time and you think the person's crazy, no matter how many times you've seen a horror movie, and then it turns out that they're right.
Yeah, you're all gonna die.
It's got a death curse.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But it's very similar to, I don't know, would you say that it was a staple for its time?
Yeah.
The movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's definitely, it's in, especially the 80s
within
horror
the
movies.
Reagan eras.
But yeah.
Yeah, it was within the Reagan/Bush era at that time.
Yeah.
It was coming out of the Reagan era and it's going right into the Bush era.
Yep.
And it's all Republican and propaganda and everything in our face. And, you know, a lot of the Democrats, yeah, I'm voter Republican, but the thing is, I have a lot of Democratic thoughts.
Yeah, I don't follow along either
even then,
party.
And I even when you had to do voter registration back in then, I was like, I don't know where I sit because I'm in between. What the hell is this?
Yeah, but you have to pick one.
You had to pick one. And at that point, I still feel the same way. I'm still a bit conservative, but I'm not as conservative as most people think. But the thing was, is I saw everything that they stated, and I thought right away, I was like, damn, they're right. All these things, obey, this is your God, right on the money. Sleep 8 hours, or all these weird things.
Marry
that
and
they put in
procreate
these
so that you
signs.
keep spending money.
Exactly.
Because the biggest money things are the wedding industry and the baby industry.
That is true. And it still is to this day.
Oh my God, babies. So expensive.
Wait until the cloning industry starts happening, you know, and then you have to clone. It's like, hold on, we got 2 of you. I'm like, God damn it. I have to support these 2 jackasses. They're the same. They're you. Oh, damn it.
Believe me, it's no fun raising you. My daughter is me. She's a tiny little me. I have to parent the me right out of her.
And then she's going to parent you, and as you get older, too, you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right, we kind of digress.
Yes,
but
I did have one more
thoughts?
point on the opening. The whole construction site with the thirst trap with Roddy with his shirt off and like some other muscle bound guys, and then like the bromance immediately between Frank and Nada.
Him and Frank?
Yeah. Like I it's just funny.
Yeah.
Like Frank looks over, he's like, "Ooh, who's that guy?"
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to work harder to impress him.
It's like white chocolate. I like that. He's got nice hair on his nips.
I mean, Roddy was in great shape back then.
You have to think about it. Roddy was actually wrestling in the early 80s. By that time, he was in prime shape. He was in his mid-30s by that point.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be, because by then Hulk Hogan had started in doing movies like this, but Roddy just chose this out of the blue, and it's a John Carpenter film. It's a rated R film. It's not a PG-13 film.
I still don't see why it's rated R.
Same here. You know, maybe because of the violence.
Maybe because of the violence. They were getting
the cursing.
Yeah, the cursing and the horror movies were getting rated higher than needed to be.
Yeah, the MPAA at that point was a little bit higher rating for anything, because they would just like strike you down. You know,
I had to protect the children.
But you got to protect the children. Yeah. Now, mind you, all the children are like out there killing us. But but the thing is that it's to me, honestly, it was kind of excessive with the violence, the gun violence, more than anything. If you think about it, with him in the bank, if you think at the very end too, at the end fighting scene with the reporter station, the news station, as it were. So yeah, I can understand it, and that's why they did what they did, because it's publicizing violence on news. So
and magic guns that have no kickback.
Exactly. Yeah, or not as much blood on people.
Yeah, there wasn't much in the way of blood.
And you got acid-faced, washed-looking people on screen that are getting killed. Yeah, I know. It could have easily been like a PG-13 film.
Yeah.
But they chose not to, and it kind of went under the radar anyway, and really only lasted so long in theaters, and then went straight to video rental, and then onto HBO or Cinemax or whatever. But to me, it was overall a decent good movie. I liked the fight between Nada and Frank after Nada had shut up the place, the actual bank.
Oh, that fight is ridiculous.
And Nada wants Frank to put the glasses on. And I think this would be the first bum fight that we've ever seen. Ever. Not even on TV or YouTube or what have you before they had bum fights. So I because think about it, Nada was like a homeless man looking for a job, and he shows up and he goes, "Oh, we're only hiring union workers." Well, can I talk to the guy in charge? You know, it's one of those, and then he gets his way onto the job site, and of course, he meets Frank. The next step would be seeing the signs with and everything with the glasses on. When Nada puts those glasses on, those were amazing. That was like just to see obey everything. Yeah. It's all in black and white. It's very dark and white. It's like black and white. That's all it is. It's like night and day. And then he takes off the glasses. Everything is colored, meaning that it's filtered with color, meaning that it's oppressed with color. So it's interesting, to say the least, when the narrative within the actual movie itself. The next step would be the drifter during the banquet that Nada and Frank know from the park where they were living because they were all homeless.
Yeah.
And he went from rags to riches in a heartbeat because he struck a deal with these people. It's all good, man.
Instantly. Well, and then...
Basically, he sold out his species, if you think about it.
Absolutely. And he didn't care one bit. He was proud of it.
Yep. And the cool thing is that we see how they can move from planet to planet within that scene, too, as well. So basically, he states it goes across the universe, meaning there are multiple species involved. And Earth is part of it. And it's a way for people to capitalize. And it's a whole game for them.
And we're just a developing little world. We're a third world.
Exactly. Yep. Makes you think. Is this how the world really is now? Do we need those glasses?
I had when Holly tosses Nada out the window.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love when a woman doesn't stay a victim.
Oh, yeah. It's perfect.
Bash him over the head, knock him out the window. I love it. And then he rolls, and he's perfectly fine after a nap.
Well, the coolest thing, too, about that is that it's in the Hollywood Hills. She knocks him. That bottle smashes over his head. He falls right out the window and down. It's a house on stilts. He's rolling down, if not Santa Monica Boulevard. Yeah. Going right down.
It's ridiculous.
And you get the nice view of L.A.
Yeah.
In a lot of these scenes, too. Honestly, regardless of the park and where they showed the homeless people, there was somebody else there too that I'm forgetting, the blonde guy who hands off Nada the binoculars. I'm forgetting the actor, but I've seen him before in other films. But it was pretty cool to see that for the fact that you get to see more of LA or downtown LA, and then where Holly actually knocks him out. That's in the higher hills of LA. And I've been there and it's beautiful. Trust me, it is beautiful. And you could see that within these scenes. But the thing is it's like night and day between the park where it's like seedy, the city, everything else within LA, downtown LA, and the city itself. And then you go up to the actual, Hollywood Hills and you get to see all that. I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen where they actually have done Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the hillside to looking down. It's amazing. And I'm glad that we're able to use that, get those screenshots for this particular movie, and let alone any other movie that's out there too, for the fact that, these films depict a version of LA that we just don't really get to see all that often.
Yeah. And I've never been to LA, but it did look cool. And I do know that there's a very big difference between the hills and the city.
Oh, yeah. And driving, too, by the way. Don't ever drive on Mulholland Drive. Don't drive on Mulholland Drive. Trust me. It sucks if you don't go the right speed. You could drive off. Yeah, exactly. Drive off a cliff. If you don't hit it the right way. Anything else?
Just the ending.
Oh, okay. At the station itself.
Yeah, and like the very end, like when they're on the roof and it seems like all is lost. Like he's got nobody left. Everyone has either been killed or converted over to the aliens. He's got absolutely nobody left. Like it's such a downer, but still he figures out how to stick it to the aliens and he dies giving them the finger, which is just perfect. All any of us could ask.
That's all we wanted.
Yeah.
And honestly, usually it's like any other movie where it would be something like that, the hero would live. In this case, he doesn't.
He doesn't get the girl. He doesn't live.
But at least he gets the last middle finger up at somebody, you know the deal. And to me, that's really, I think I like for the fact is that it's like somebody did their best just to fuck with the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's literally what this is representing, the whole movie. It's like, we need to screw with the system at this point.
And if you're the last one, you can still make a difference.
The one thing I want to point out that I really did admire is during the time when he kidnapped Holly, he was very forceful, but he was very empathetic to it.
Yeah.
He really felt bad about it. And, he was trying to explain to her and show her the situation. Now, mind you, with Meg Foster and her eyes and how bright they are, she does seem look like a demon when you look at her.
Her eyes are striking.
They are striking. They are like super light blue.
Yeah. It's
so unworldly at times whenever I've seen her on film. But the fact is that he's trying to explain to her and she can't trust because, you were pulled out. Now, mind you, he pulls her into her own car. Now, Steve and I had brought this up during Commando. In Commando, Arnie winds up like pulling out the whole passenger side seat. In this case, at least Roddy's like, I'm a regular dude. I'm here. I'm laying back and takes her back. He's only holding onto her arm really hard and tight. And he's very apologetic about it. He wants to get to know her. And then, of course, he gets struck in the back of the head with a bottle and he breaks through, the candy glass that's of the window and falls out and goes down the Hollywood Hills. But to me, it showed a kind of a respect. And it wasn't like at that time, because during the 80s, if you look at how men approached women in certain movies where they would just take them and grab them. In this case, he showed empathy and understanding. And that's what I think I really appreciated about within this film. Is that he just wanted somebody to understand the truth. And he wasn't there for sex. He wasn't there to beat the crap out of her, rape her, or do any of that. He just wanted her to know the truth. And unfortunately, she took it the wrong way. And, you got badass woman just smacking the shit out of him. Which is good.
Yeah.
And honestly, I do appreciate that. So it's like, okay, good.
Yeah.
And, except for the two neighbors that she had that were smoking weed that were gay, it's like, oh, hi, Ollie. And then they go out and do their business. Can we talk about the hairstyles back then? Because
Roddy's mullet.
Yeah,
that is a beautiful mullet. It was ideal mullet for that time.
But the thing is, it wasn't like what I had in the 80s. I had a part in the middle of my head, right in the middle, parted that way, and I had long hair. I had pretty much like that mullet and that long hair towards past my, and Jamie's looking at me right now going, dude, you're bald as hell.
Oh, you've seen pictures before. I've seen it.
Oh, she's seen pictures. Okay. But Roddy has a part on the side, and he's got a decent mullet. Now, honestly, that mullet is really good. He rocks it very well, and he's always rocked it well in the 80s. I always thought that. I don't know about you.
No, I agree. I always liked his hair. Like, it was perfect 80s hair.
Yeah.
And if for no other reason, watch the movie for his hair.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he had perfect hair. Yeah. And kudos to him, too, because he was an orphan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of you listeners, if you want, there's a whole biography about Roddy Piper. It's usually on the WWE Network or the WWE app, or if you could find it on Peacock. They talk about that. And I watched it years ago. He was an orphan. He didn't know his parents. He didn't know his mother or father. He was born and he was dropped off at this orphanage, and he grew up alone. And then that's how he got into wrestling. And he started learning wrestling on his own at the local gym and stuff like that. And then started getting into the freelance stuff. And then he was able to make a name for himself. And honestly, that is so great for somebody to make something of themselves out of nothing where somebody had abandoned them. And, honestly, I look at the Roddy Piper's family. He built up his own family. He wound up getting married. And I don't know if you noticed, Jamie, he had a wedding ring on.
I didn't notice.
I did. He has his wedding ring on in the film. So it showed how much he loved his family. And Frank in the movie talks about having to send out money because they were out in Detroit.
Yeah.
And he had to come out. And these films, when Carpenter was doing the trilogy of films, were all done within California. So it was They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, and The Prince of Darkness. Like I stated, I still don't know. I'm thinking it was In the Mouth of Madness that the deal was meant for, so that way he could do his big budget film. But these 3 films were done within Los Angeles, and Roddy came on, and it wasn't a high budget film too, and it wasn't highly regarded, but it has cult status just as much as Prince of Darkness and Big Trouble in Little China. So keep that in mind, listeners. But he was a family man, and he wore his wedding ring. So keep a look at that if you watch the movie again. Yeah. All right. Well, with this, we're going to move right into interesting facts and unknown facts about the movie They Live from 1988. So, Jamie, take it away.
They Live was inspired by a comic book adaptation of a short story. They Live is an adaptation of Ray Nelson's science fiction short story 8 o'clock in the morning, which was originally published in the 1960s. But John Carpenter's more direct inspiration was from an Eclipse Comics adaptation of Nelson's story, which he stumbled across in the mid-1980s. Intrigued by the idea of aliens enslaving humanity, Carpenter then sought out the original prose work. 8 o'clock in the morning is a DOA type of story in which a man is put in a trance state by a stage hypnotist. Carpenter told Starlog in 1988, when he awakens, he realizes that the entire human race has been hypnotized and that the alien creatures are controlling humanity. He has only until 8 o'clock in the morning to solve the problem. Though Carpenter liked the idea of the entire population being controlled subliminally by an alien menace, he wasn't too keen on hypnotism idea. He bought the rights to the story and began adapting it, changing the hypnotism to the very 1980s notion of Americans being controlled via subliminal messaging. And I like that better than hypnotism too. I think he totally did the right thing.
He did. Yeah, definitely. Well, next up, They Live was a response to Ronald Reagan's America. So Carpenter states, as he later recalled, I wanted to strike out in some way, so I cast the Republicans as alien creatures. Even years later, Carpenter continues to believe in the relevance of the rich get richer conspiracy at the heart of the film. They are still here, making more money than ever. And they're still among us, he said. Which is true.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah.
And if you play Among Us, you could actually kill people.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, cartoon people, but yeah. Look at that tie.
Exactly. There you go.
John Carpenter wrote They Live under an alias. Carpenter had always been a multi-hyphenate kind of filmmaker, directing, writing, producing, and scoring his movies. By the time They Live came around, he'd grown a little disillusioned with the idea of continuing to have his name plastered absolutely everywhere. With that in mind, he decided that he'd use a pseudonym for They Live screenplay credit. It was a reaction to seeing my name all over these movies, Carpenter explained to Entertainment Weekly in 2012. I think the height of it was Christine. It was like John Carpenter's Christine, directed by John Carpenter, music by John Carpenter. What an egotist. Carpenter chose the pseudonym Frank Armitage, which is a character from H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Dunwich Horror, which he picked just because I love Lovecraft.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people love or hate Lovecraft. And that's the funny thing, because Lovecraft, over the years, there's a lot of stuff that's been dug up about Lovecraft. And my theory and my thought about anything, if you love the craft, I'm talking about the stories or anything else, love that. Leave the person beside, because they could be the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
For all we know. You know. But don't admonish the stuff that you love too. When as soon as you find out the truth about somebody, you know, just love the stories. That's all it is. All right, my next up would be Roddy Piper had never heard of John Carpenter.
Wow.
So for the role of John Nada, They Live central character, Carpenter was on the hunt for an everyman who could embody the blue-collar worker class. A lifelong wrestling fan, Carpenter was intrigued by the prospect of meeting Roddy Piper, and the two were introduced by Piper's management after WrestleMania 3. Piper was interested in getting into more acting roles, but later admitted that had no idea who Carpenter was before meeting him. And this is what Piper had to say. So the guy who was managing me at the time, Dave Wolf, said, I want you to have dinner with this guy. I never heard of him, but that's my bad, because I had been fighting pro since I was like 15. I was rolling pretty hard. That's what Piper recalled. And he said, okay, after WrestleMania is over, after it's over. So we sat down, and I'm trying to not to be too facetious, but it was pretty close to this. Could you pass me the butter? You want to roll? Yeah. Want to star in the next movie? Sure. Can I have some more champagne? Sure. It wasn't much more than that, really. For his part, Carpenter felt Piper's look and demeanor perfectly matched the nada he was looking for. And John states, his face, his scars, everything about him, he seemed completely believable.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I would have loved to have been at that dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like it was a good time.
Yeah, like dinner with Andre.
Yeah. They Live's most famous line came from Roddy Piper. Even if you've never seen They Live, you've probably heard someone at some point in your life say, I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. You may have heard it at the beginning of this podcast.
Exactly.
Ever since Nada delivered that line in the film, it's maintained a life even beyond They Live, becoming one of the most popular, frequently quoted lines in all of pop culture. According to Carpenter, the line came straight from Piper, who kept a notebook full of quips that he liked to use in his wrestling promos. Traveling all around the country, wrestling different people, those guys come up with a lot of stuff to hype matches and interviews. They have to come up with one-liners. Roddy had a book full of them that he carried with him, Carpenter explained. He'd sit on a plane and come up with these things. He gave me the book when I was writing the script, and that was the best one in there. I think he was wrestling Playboy Buddy Rose, and he may have said that line then. According to Piper, the line didn't enter the picture until the day after they shot the scene, but either way, both men agree that he wrote it.
Awesome.
It is one of the most famous lines in...
It is. It's like you don't even have to know the movie. You know the quote.
Yeah.
And you could start saying it and somebody else like, yeah. Give it to me. Hit me. But, yeah. And when I bring it up to people of what movie that is, they look at me like I've never seen the movie. How do you know the quote and not know the movie?
Come on, how many movie
that
quotes
is
do
my
people...
question.
People know quotes and misquote movies.
Yeah,
it's just part of pop culture life.
That's well, yeah. I think that's why you and I are friends, because we both know what movie that quote came from,
right?
As well as Ben and all our other friends that are out there, they would know the movie. All right, I've already had my little spat. Understand? Okay, next up. They Live subliminal messaging proved costly. So They Live was relatively low budget film, and Carpenter recalled a budget of only about $4 million when he and Piper recorded a commentary track for the film years later. So the filmmakers sometimes had to get creative when depicting worlds secretly taken over by aliens. In some cases, this was relatively easy, as in the moments when Nada looks through his glasses up on the billboards on the side of buildings. For that, Carpenter and company turned to classic matte paintings rather than paying to have new billboards hung and film. It was just old-fashioned filmmaking, one of the oldest tricks in the book, Carpenter recalled, which you do actually see and you do understand, very much like kind of like the drones that we do see as well. I'm going to continue on reading, saying the scene in which Nada comes up upon a supermarket full of aliens or ghouls, to use Carpenter's preferred term, was more complicated because every visible label in the store had to be replaced with a plain white label revealing the subliminal messaging. According to Carpenter, the crew attempted to shoot the scene on location at a real market, but they simply couldn't cover everything. So a set had to be built instead. That was our biggest expenditure, Carpenter said, of the subliminal supermarket. Wow. Yeah. You would think that would be a lot because you have to replace everything. When you're in a city base, you could do matte paintings and easily put billboards or put something behind somebody or put something in the forefront or kind of like the old green screen things where you could put somebody sitting down and then in behind them they can mat it. Yeah, apparently this got costly, but this was late 80s at that point. So they're still working within that. We haven't gotten to the CG era, everybody. So, but yeah, check that out. So give quality where quality is due for that time.
Oh yeah, no, it was pretty. I mean, other than the explosions on the roof at the end, it was pretty believable.
Yeah, it is.
They Live's props were recycled from other movies. In a few shots of They Live, particularly in the scenes in the alien compound near the end, you might notice alien characters using strange sci-fi looking devices as communicators and realize they look similar to props used as ghost detection devices in Ghostbusters. I did notice that. That's because
Really?
I did, because we just saw Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, wait, I just forgot to write it down.
Yeah.
That's because they're the same props. According to Carpenter, the film was so low budget that they rented various things from prop houses, and that's how they got those devices. This money-saving technique also meant that the film got props left over from another Carpenter film. According to Piper, Big Trouble in Little China is represented for the sunglasses at the center of the story. When John did Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell, there's a scene with the 18-wheeler. And if you look at those glasses, they had a whole bunch of glasses left over, Piper said. And that's the glasses we used in They Live. And yes, I have a couple pairs of the original glasses.
Okay, so basically Little Trouble in Little China was responsible for the glasses at the center of the story. That's pretty cool. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I did notice the community. I'm like, wait a minute, that's from Ghostbusters.
Which one? What was it?
When they're talking, like I sensed them on floor 19 above me. And the other guy's like, oh, well, we're on floor 21. We'll just wait for him. That's where you see it.
Oh, okay. Huh. Cool. I got to go back and look now.
Watch it a fourth time
you
tonight.
Guys. Yeah, exactly, right? All right, next up. Yes, They Live's iconic fight scene was always meant to be that long. So, They Live is perhaps the most famous for Roddy Piper's bubblegum line, but longtime fans of the film also recall the fight scene between Nada and Frank, Keith David, as an equally important hallmark. Yes, this is the fight in the back alley by the dumpster. Okay. It lasts more than 5 minutes at a key point in the film and goes through several evolutions, though the argument is always just over Frank's refusal to put on Nada's sunglasses. According to Carpenter, the fight was scripted as several nearly blank pages in screenplay that simply read, "The fight continues," signifying that it was always meant to be a long scene. Hence, that's why you hire a professional wrestler to choreograph and do this. Okay, now back to the article. To make it come to life, Amada rehearsed and choreographed the scene for more than a month with Piper and David working with pads outside Carpenter's office. They practiced each major beat, including several pro wrestling moves. Yes, they are there.
Yeah.
And you could tell where they are.
Absolutely.
Over and over until they could hit each other for real while also pulling their punches to reduce injury. The result is what we see in the film. Years later, during an interview for the DVD release, Carpenter was asked if he ever considered making the fight any shorter in the editing room. His response was, okay, this is like Roy Kent. Fuck no. So if you knew Ted Lasso, you know that.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, as long as that fight scene is, I can't imagine it being any shorter.
Yeah.
And it played, because it did play pretty real. Like they did a lot of work. Because when they have the cops come in to tear apart the homeless encampment, and the cops are beating up like the priest and some of the other people. Yeah. Those are terrible fights.
They are terrible fights.
You can see the pulled punches.
Yeah, you can. But the thing
awful.
is, if you look at the behind the scenes footage, and if you get the Blu-ray version or the 4K Blu-ray version, they're out there, by the way. So you could get They Live. You could actually see Roddy with the behind the scenes stuff. And you could see him and Keith like fighting in the back alley, and they're on cardboard and pads, and they actually do that fight.
Oh, wow.
And it's pretty cool.
That was cool.
Yeah. So if you get that DVD release of it, check it out. Next up.
One guy played almost every alien. The whole point of the alien ghouls at the center of They Live is that they can be anybody. From the lady next to you at the supermarket, to the cop who's arresting you, hey, I'm not arrested, to the president of the United States. In actual fact, though, the ghouls in the film aren't just anybody. They're mostly one guy, Jeff Amata, who was also the film stunt coordinator. According to Amata, Carpenter originally hired actors to play the ghouls in the film, but wasn't too happy with the male actor in particular and asked Amata to begin doubling. It was funny because I ended up doubling a lot of the stunt guys that were there, Amata recalled. Amata played not all of them, but quite a few in the film, including the very last ghoul we see, who's having sex with the woman when the alien signal shut down at the end of the and all of the ghouls reveal how they are truly appeared. I love that scene. That's like the perfect ending scene.
Hey, what, babe?
Yeah. You know what? That might have been what made it rated R, that last scene.
Really? Because you didn't really see any nudity.
You saw her boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They edit that out for TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was...
But you also saw his ugly, greasy face on top of her. All right, well, last up, John Carpenter improvised the score. So, like many of his films, Carpenter also served as composer for They Live, working once again with composer and sound designer Alan Howarth for what turned out to be a largely improvisational process. He says, I walked into Alan's studio with a complete blank and noted that he has taken similarly blank slate approach to many of his films. With Howarth, who recalled that Carpenter didn't even want the faintest explanation of how his synthesizers worked, working on the programming of the side of things, Carpenter sat down at the keyboard with a cut of the movie playing on the screen in front of him and started to make up the music as the film went along, beginning with the tempo, which was pulled directly from the pace of Nada's walk across the train tracks into the opening shot. From there, Carpenter was off, and Howarth made adjustments as they went. I just invented the little bass part and put everything around it, Carpenter said. Carpenter was also responsible for another key element of the film's sound, the deep alien voice saying, sleep.
Ooh.
Is his recorded and manipulated by Howarth. Yeah, it's very simple. It's only about 4 notes, honestly. And I could play it on bass. And I'm half tempted to put that as the intro if I get into my no digs. And I could take my bass out and just do that.
Do it. Intro or outro. Do it.
I'll probably try to do it for the outro. And I'll do it with my 12-string bass.
Nice.
It's very interesting, too, because the way it's all you have is those 4 notes, literally, and a clap. And there's an echo. And being somebody who is of somebody who played in bands like metal bands, rock bands, and all this good stuff in my life, I always loved John Carpenter's music. But with this, he came in with a blank, so he just was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So the most simplistic thing works out to be the main theme for the movie. Now, mind you, it's kind of a little bit different with Prince of Darkness. So if you're not happy with They Live, go watch Prince of Darkness. Because that theme and that soundtrack was amazing. My thoughts of being a Carpenter fan, by the way. All right.
He was great at soundtracks.
He was, and he still is. And now, mind you, he had his moments like everybody does.
I mean, you have that much stuff that you're making. You're going to have some stuff's going to be better than others. There's going to be a...
Exactly. And there's only so many times you could do the Halloween theme.
Right.
For so many versions of it, whether it be Rob Zombie's or all the continual sequels that he had after Halloween, the original from 1970, and then he's done that and he gets residual money regarding that. Honestly, I want more original work from him, which you could actually go to johncarpenter.com. You can actually go to his website and actually go that. Him and his son actually do original work. So you could check
I
that
didn't know
out
that.
on
That's
his
cool.
website. Yeah. They actually did the work on vampires, him and his son. So if you're really into that particular movie, that was a really good movie. Check that out. And did I mention that I was a John Carpenter fan? Okay. No. All right. So now we're going to move into quotes. So, Jamie, I know you have a few.
Yeah, well, there's the obvious bubblegum one, which we don't have to say again.
Oh, come on. You can say it.
I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
There you go.
But another one of my absolute favorites is in the supermarket. You know, you look like your head fell in the cheese dip back in 1957. You're okay, but this one's real fucking ugly.
I love it so much.
Too. I mean, I've used the you're okay, but this one's real fucking ugly before, but I had forgotten about the cheese dip part until this rewatch.
Yeah, I know, right? I thought it was hilarious. I just watched it not too long ago.
I love that line because it's not wrong.
Oh, it's not wrong.
And then
not at all.
The last one, when he finally gets Frank to wear the glasses, he's like, "You ain't the first son of a bitch to wake up out of their dream."
Yeah. Well, to comment on your particular one with the woman with the cheese dip face, this is within the same scene. That cheese dip faced alien states, we have one that could see, and using her watch, and you see her ugly glazed face on screen in black and white. And then John Otter goes, "Mama don't like no tattletales," and starts to shoot, and she disappears because the watches have like that teleportation device in it.
Those watches are cool.
Yeah. After the bank robbery and or heist, or where he's shooting people, he comes out and he sees the woman decking up her hair and looking into the window, and he goes, and you could see it's an alien, and she's looking in the reflection, and he goes, "That's like pouring perfume on a pig." Oh my god. And then the last one is actually from Frank, and he states it's in the very beginning when they're eating food, and just after Nada and Frank actually did a hard day's worth of work, and you could see Nada lapping up his food from his dish to his mouth because he's so hungry. And Frank was saying that he's got to send out money out to Detroit. So he goes, "Yeah, the golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rules."
Not wrong.
Not wrong, exactly. Those who have the money call the shots, unfortunately. And it's very much representational of what's going on even now to this day.
Yeah, I feel like it's
really
always
sad.
been.
It's a sad commentary. All right, well, we're going to move right along into ratings of this movie. And as you all know, we rate this movie from 1 to 10 on an adrenaline scale. I know that Run for Your Lives don't do ratings anymore, but I still continue to do it.
That's
and
fine.
I don't care because I like to have fun. So what do you have, Jamie?
I'm going to go with a 7 because it's just so much fun. I mean, the acting is mostly terrible. All but the one fight scene are pretty terrible, but it's fun. Roddy Piper's mullet is worth the price of admission, and the bubblegum line means you have to watch this movie.
Well, mine would be a 7.5 because the movie is a favorite of mine. So, of course, my rating is going to be pretty decent overall. It still holds up to an extent based on age. Now, mind you, if they remade this, it would be more modernized, and we'd have cell phones, internet, and things of that nature. We get a little bit more. I'm wondering if it's gonna, if whoever does this does it where they have those ionized lenses that go right into your eyes, very similar, and dare I not say it, The Matrix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at one point when they're first showing the city with the glasses on, and they show the street sign, and it's got the and I'm like, well, we have that now. We've got 5G little towers on all of the street signs.
Yeah. Yep, we do. Yep, we do. Yeah. And you do have cell phone blockers, too, out there, too, that you could buy for like $35, according to Dexter.
Right.
All right. Now on to guilty pleasure movies. So that could be any movie. Doesn't have to be action. Could be comedy. Could be horror. Could be sci-fi. Could be thriller. Could be drama. Anything that you like, but not many people like. Or it's gotten really bad Rotten Tomatoes score. Or you're sitting there and you're in a conversation with your friends and some of them are not like you, which is very different now. But because if me and Jamie are in the same place, both of us would be saying, thinking the same thing. But I'm just saying that, it's like you're with other friends and they're like, oh, I like that movie. And everybody's like, that movie sucked. Or even on Rotten Tomatoes, it got a bad review. IMDb gave it a bad review, or everybody's just like hating on it momentarily. So what would that movie be right now?
The one I feel I have been defending lately, so I'm going to officially put it out there, is Jason X.
Why?
Because it's a terrible movie, but has the best scene of the entire Jason series, in my opinion.
Okay, what's that scene? Tell me, because I know you brought this up watched it in the 80s.
No, I brought this up on Wilhelm.
Oh, that's right. You did it on Ben's. Yes.
Yeah. Because Ben is one of the ones I had to defend this movie against.
Oh, that's right. I remember him. He goes, please don't say Jason X, and you did.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Well, there is the one scene where the movie won my heart a little bit, where the teacher is like, guys, it's fine. He just wanted his machete back. See, everything's okay. And then, which is hysterical. That has always,
Yeah, I know.
But the scene that is worth the price of admission for the movie, that makes the entire movie worth watching. I mean, plus it's Kane Hodder as Jason. So anytime Kane Hodder is Jason, you need to watch it. Is the virtual reality scene where they have the two girls in the sleeping bags and they're like, hi.
Oh. You want to smoke some pot?
You want premarital sex? We love premarital sex. And he just picks them up in the sleeping bags and starts bashing them in the sleeping bags. Like, you cannot watch that without laughing hysterically. And it just makes the whole movie worth watching. And I adore that movie.
It kind of plays a comedy unto itself.
Yeah, it doesn't take itself seriously. On top of that, we get Uber Jason at the very end, which I love because I think Kane loves the idea of the costume. Because he still puts it on at cons.
Yeah, and to me, I really enjoyed that. The two major costumes of Kane Hodder as Jason, to me, was Friday the 13th Part 7. That makeup, the bones and everything else, the mask, his skeletal look of him under this, even though he was brought up by somebody who had telekinesis.
Yeah.
That to me, and that was me in high school, and I remember seeing that on the billboards, and I saw that in the theater. To me, I really enjoyed that. And Jason X, when I came out, I knew it was kind of goofy. It was kind of playing on that whole leprechaun in space kind of thing.
Yeah, it was.
But it worked.
It did. I mean, and Jason, like, the body count in that movie, because he technically took out an entire base.
Yes. Yeah. And then the android on the film, too, in the film. She's a known actress in sci-fi, too, which is funny. But I just love the fact that, it was like a whole thing of, it's like, I want nipples and all this other nonsense. And then she becomes a huge badass. Yeah. And taking out, and at the very end, she's just a head.
And Kane is just the best Jason, in my opinion. I mean, he is able to convey so much with just like a little tilt of his head.
Yes.
I love him.
He has the nuances of playing Jason perfectly. He might not have been the tallest, but Kane had it perfect and dead to rights on how that character should have been played. And he's played it, 4 times?
7, 8, 9, and X. Yeah. And then when they did Freddy versus Jason, they didn't pick him, which I am still pissed about. He and I had a long discussion. Yeah, he and I had a long discussion about this because they wanted somebody more physically the same size as Freddy. I'm like, that's not the whole point. The whole point is Brain versus Brawn.
Yeah, they wanted somebody taller than Robert, and Robert was already tall. He was like 6+. Kane I think is 5'10".
But Kane
is bulkier.
No, Kane's got to be taller than that.
No, he's 5'11", 5'10", 5'11".
Okay, see behind me?
I know.
That's me and him back there.
I know that.
I feel like he's taller than
Kane.
I feel like he's taller than that.
Jamie, I met Kane several times.
So have I. I'm also very tiny.
Fellow. Yes, I know that. I've seen you too in person.
Just a few times.
I'm a short person as well. But the thing is that I love Kane. I wish he was taller. Personally, I wanted him as well to play that particular character in Jason vs. Freddy. Hopefully, we will get another movie with him in it. Now, mind you, the man is burned a lot. And if you've seen him, you see his neck. You see the back of his neck, his neck, his chest, his hands, his arms. They're burned.
The internet says that he is 6'3".
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I got to go back to that picture of him choking me back in Chola Theater in 1997.
It's like
he was just above me a little bit, and I'm only 5'6".
But yeah, the internet. Sorry, I had to look it up. I'm like, I know he's taller than 6 foot. I know he's at least 6 foot.
All right. Oh, well, maybe we'll have to reach out to Kane and actually have an interview with him, and we have to talk all together.
Down for that. But yeah, he and I had a long discussion about how he should have been in Freddy versus Jason, which really is my only complaint about that movie is that it wasn't Kane.
Yeah, I know. I had the same gripe and I had the same feeling as well. All because I do appreciate what Kane had done. And I wanted more. So, to me, honestly, I really enjoy Jason X as well. I love all the Friday the 13th films. So
me too.
Well, mine, you'll laugh. Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell.
I love that movie. That's such a good movie.
Yeah, Don Coscarelli movie about a man who thinks he is the elderly version of Elvis. And it's Bruce Campbell playing that character. And apparently he's supposed to be a former Elvis impersonator that is put into an old folks home. And he's also with another person, a black man, who thinks he is John F. Kennedy.
And if that is not enough to make you want to watch the movie, I don't want us to be friends with you anymore.
And they battle a mummy. Bubba Hotep. And it's a lifelong thing. So you see people at rockers battling a mummy that are killing people off in a old folks home. So, yeah, to me, I really enjoy this movie. And I just have fun with it. I think it's one of the coolest things that Bruce has done. And it's something that he actually could do a continuation on if he wanted to, because, you know, he can't do Ash Campbell anymore. He can't do Ashley. And what was it, the Evil Dead series or anything like that? He refuses.
He mentioned there was something that he might be coming back for.
Really?
Yeah, I forget the exact details right now because I don't get enough sleep in my life. But there is something he just recently came out saying, yeah, I'm going to come back for this. And I forget if it was a game or
probably a game. He probably voiced something, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, in the back of my head, it's a game, but I'm not. I'll bet a quarter on it, not $1.
All right. Well, whatever it is, it's going to be groovy.
Absolutely.
So we already know. All right. So with that, we didn't get any audio feedback. We didn't get any emails, but we did get something from Jamie's.
I'm disappointed.
Well, yeah. Well, Steve's got a lot going on. He might actually be doing Cowboy Bebop for Panels to Pixels, so keep a lookout for that. But Wendy Odd Eppers actually commented on your Facebook page.
Yay,
and
Wendy!
I'm taking that quote, so if you want to read that, that would be great.
From Wendy, I remember how excited we were when the trailers to this came out. It was unlike anything we had seen, and it didn't disappoint. An early show I saw with my husband when we were kids, and we both loved it. So more high praise for the movie. I love that this movie, because I love that this movie has such a special place in people's hearts.
It does.
Everybody has honestly, like a special story about it.
Yeah, they do. And it's something that everybody recognizes. They know the face, they know the masks. Especially with the acid look,
Yeah.
the aliens, because you can find them now online. But the thing is, it's also Obey and everything else, and as well as that kick-ass line that Roddy Piper actually puts out. So, with that, where can listeners hear you? Obviously, they know you from Panels to Pixels.
Yes. You and I doing Invincible. Does that come back in April, I think?
I believe so, and you will be back, and I will be covering that. But do you have any podcast recommendations? I know you were on Watched It in the 80s with Damien.
Yep, we did Evil Dead, and we've been doing the Friday the 13th series because it's near and dear to my heart. We've done 1 and 2. I think that was it. We still have to do 3 and 4, or we did 1, 2, and 3. I don't remember which now. But if you're into the Friday the 13th, you want to hear about it, watch it in the 80s. And I suggest listening to all of his podcasts. He's got a lot of good movies. He did a couple episodes on Family Ties. So it's not just movies, it's TV shows too. And Damien's great at podcasting.
Yeah, he goes deep dives into those particular films and shows too. Family Ties I really enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
Got a lot of good information onto it. Wilhelm too. You did something on Wilhelm?
Yep, I've done the horror movie one back in October, which was probably the hardest podcast I've ever done because I had to pick my top 5 favorite horror movies. And I had a list of about 30 that I was trying to narrow down. We did that one. And then he and I did a End of the World one early on when he first started the podcast. So if you want to hear more of me, I don't understand, but there's more of me on Wilhelm, but I highly recommend the Wilhelm podcast because it's just friends talking about movies. And it's such a great idea for a podcast. It's so much fun to listen to. And he says it all the time, like he could revisit most of the topics with a different person and have a completely different podcast, which is what's really cool about it.
Yep. Yeah, I really enjoyed the Wilhelm podcast, and I really love what Bang's doing with that. Check that out, and you can find that on the Next Level Online Radio. Oh, the Next Level Radio Online Network. And you could find Panels to Pixels there as well. So that's where you could hear me as well. Steve Brown and I actually do Panels to Pixels podcast, and we cover anything adapted from comics that's going to TV, film, or whatever. So right now we're currently working on Hawkeye. Like I mentioned before, Steve might be working on something with our friend Eric Stipes and talking and discussing Cowboy Bebop. So look out for that and check out that. And you could find that on the Next Level Radio Online Network. For you to submit your feedback or theories, well, you can just go to our Facebook group, which would be facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. And if you would like to send an email, well, you can easily just send a texted email to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. And if you feel like you want a live Steve, kind of like how Steve Brown does it, live Steving, #LiveSteving. He does that for Run for Your Lives on the Pyrocore Entertainment Network, as well as many others, as well as Podcastica Network, the Next Level Online Radio Network as well. And all you have to do is record your voice and what you want to state, and we will play it, and we will listen to it. We've done this before on this podcast. So all you have to do is record your voice from your computer. If obviously everybody has a microphone and a headphone. And then once you do that, just save it. And then just email it to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. And we'll play it and we'll listen to it and we'll talk about it. It'd be awesome. Cool.
Hey. And then people can get a break from hearing just, us talk.
Exactly.
A third voice.
Nobody wants to hear
nice.
my voice. All right. Well, where can we be heard? Obviously, you've heard us. You're hearing us right now. But we could be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, Deezer, or whatever player of choice that you're using right now. Basically, talk to your friends. Let them know exactly what we're doing here. If you like what we're doing here and they like that kind of content, just send it out to them. Word spread like a virus. So please spread that virus of Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. So do that, and it would be greatly appreciated. So if there's anything if there's like a rating or review, please rate or review our podcast. There's definitely reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. So with that, do so, and will be greatly appreciated. So coming up next, well, to let you know, our friend Megan Dively Lehman, she and I will be, or Megan Dively Lehman, is it?
I think it's Lehman.
Correct me, Jane.
I think it's Lehman, but she could be yelling at us right now. Sorry, Megan.
Yeah, sorry, Megan. I have no way of remembering or figuring it out. But we will be covering Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So if you have any thoughts on that particular movie, please send them in, and you know how to get there. So with that, that is our podcast for the day. And I just want to thank Jamie for being on.
Thanks for inviting me.
No problem.
It's always fun.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. We have to continue on this whole John Carpenter track right now, because I think Jerry started it off with The Thing.
The Thing is an excellent movie.
Yeah, but I think Jerry and you and Big Trouble in Little China would be a good idea.
We could do that.
Yeah, and then we could punish with all the puns.
It would be.
all my listeners. All right. So with that, I just want to thank all y'all for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jamie.
And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.